Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are back. It is the podcast
Good
live.
morning. How
Good
are
morning, good
you,
afternoon,
Adam?
good night, wherever people are in the world. It is Friday, the 7th day of August in the year 2020, and we are back on the podcast live for the Power Hour. I am thrilled, honored, and just elated to welcome my first guest. She is a dear friend of mine that we met on this platform. She's a tremendous supporter of me. I support everything that she does, and she's just been an incredible voice on this platform for a while, and just someone who is truly empathetic, someone who really understands human nature. And I'm excited to talk to her today about personal branding. Lorena, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure always being here with you and be your number one supporter. I love your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's even put a cool little, where's my fun little tricks that I have here? I could even do fun stuff on this show. Look, I could even have like a banner here. We could get all that stuff going. So let's jump in, everybody. Again, welcome. We're back on the podcast, and today I'm doing something pretty cool. It's the Power Hour. So I have three incredible ladies joining me today. First is Lorena Acosta. We're going to talk about personal branding, followed by Rebeecca O'Brien, and we're going to talk about burnout. Burnout is real. We're going to talk about the signs, what to do, how to recognize it, and just how people could deal right now. And then batting last, but certainly not least, Maya Grossman is going to join us. She has been a outstanding voice on LinkedIn talking about career search, career journeys, career tips, and all that fun stuff. And I love her actionable advice, and I could really vouch for a lot of them. So we're going to have some fun conversations here. So Lorena, let's jump in here. First and foremost, personal branding, right? I don't think it really existed as an actionable term, an actionable kind of idea until the last couple of years. And back in my day, we used to call personal branding reputation, right? It's what people say about you behind your back. And now that we're in this digital age, right, everything is a presence, right? Your online and your offline have to mesh together. Lorena, let's start off first and foremost, if you could kindly define what personal branding means.
Well, personal branding is most of it where you are showcasing who you are as a human being. What are your skills, and what are your values as a human being, and what are your beliefs, so you start aligning with different audience that is really, comprehending the way that you're thinking. So this is how now so many tribes are created on social media, because everybody has their own beliefs. So when they feel that that person is aligned with their beliefs and their values, they become their followers, because it's about belief. When you have a common belief with a group of people, that make harmony, right?
Absolutely. And why do you think it's so hot right now, right? Why do you think that like everyone's kind of jumping on this personal branding bandwagon? Do they not understand how to, showcase themselves, in the professional manner? Are they missing those skill sets? I mean, where do you think the deficiency is?
Well, first of all, because they treat LinkedIn like if this is their own personal blog, and it's not their own personal blog. This is a professional platform, but that you can showcase somehow part of your personal life, but not everything, right?
And what is that balance? Like for me specifically, there's times when I get, personal, like a couple of days ago, I shared my two kids, which was pretty awesome. And I see that people love that, they love to see, the family side of the pause,
Sure.
with my two kids. And then I switch it around and I could go really deep on careers.
I was surprised to see that pictures of your kids, because you and I, we always share pictures, and you always send me the pictures of your kids. And when I saw the picture, I was like, it can be happening. But that's great, because this is part of your personal brand, and people really appreciate that, the fact that you're sharing your family with us, and we know who you are.
Absolutely. And people buy from people, people absolutely buy from people. And that's true. And I've been hesitant, I don't share too much about my kids, that's my own personal reason for doing that, and other people, I respect everyone's decision. If you want to put your kids and family front and center, great. If not, that's your choice. Some people are certainly protective of that. But I did it in a way which was also authentic, because we were doing a book review for Kristen Sherry, who came out with a new book, and my daughter read it. I wouldn't just put my kids out there for the likes and the engagement, right? I think there's a balance there. But what I really want to get into, and thank you, I love my kids.
I'm gonna tell you something that maybe you are missing.
Please.
That maybe many of the people that went to like and comment on your picture are parents of kids at the age that your kids are right now.
Of course.
So they actually related with you. There was something that attracted them to them, not only the post, but your beliefs and your values were there for them.
That's so true. And it shines through. And I think it's important to see that, it's not just me. It's not much just me as a recruiter. It's not just me as a small business owner, but me as a parent. And it's a very good point. So you are a professional coach in the world of branding and everything. So if I was somebody new to LinkedIn, or if I was somebody that was on LinkedIn for a while, but was struggling, with my personal brand, how would you start? How would you start to help somebody define and build a personal brand and presence online?
With their values. That would be the first, then the step number one.
And how do you help people define their values?
Well, we have an assignment. I have
a we're not going to give away all the secrets, people.
What?
I said we're not going to give away all the secrets, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. So this assignment, what does it do?
I have an assignment, with my clients where they really, people change their values, right? I mean, when you grow up, your parents taught you some values, and then when you become a teenager, those values change, right? So you had a different values. And while you were growing up, your values change. As we evolve, our values as well change.
So, I mean, there's some values, though, that are innate, right? Like there are values that you have from when you were growing up, like empathy, kindness, the golden rule to treat people the way they expect to be treated. But we talk about like professional values as well. But like, how do you take those values and translate it into an online presence?
Well, by talking about them, by sharing your vision and sharing your perspective about the values and how you encounter, different situations and how you manage them through your values. And that's part of the storytelling.
That's fantastic. And let's talk about that. You said a key word there, which is storytelling. And I think that's something that some people get and understand. I mean, I have a marketing background. I've done this for a long time. I understand the story arc, but a lot of people, it's not second nature to them. How do you advise on storytelling? What's your method? What's your approach?
Well, first of all, they need to craft their messaging to be able to give in less than 60 seconds whatever they want to share. Because after the 60 seconds, everything you say is a waste, unless you have a large audience and they really are your followers. But I would not recommend to create any video longer than 60 seconds.
So you're saying that any video on LinkedIn should not be longer than 60 seconds. Yeah. I mean, I put out clips too that are a little bit longer. I never go over 2 minutes, but I think that's important because it captures my setup for the question of a guest.
I mean, what I tell my clients always is like, okay, your video is great, it's fantastic, but you need to remember that the human retention span is only 60 seconds. So after you talk 60 seconds, everything you say is a waste because they cannot hold it. Right. You understand? So why? And the best part of the videos are always in the end.
So you're saying get to the good stuff earlier.
Yeah. So what I teach my clients is how they can craft their messaging with the right audience, with the right values, with the right beliefs, with the common beliefs, and the solution of that they want to bring in less than 60 seconds. Sometimes they come and say, well, it's impossible for me to create a video for less than 60 seconds. So then when we craft the message together, and then I say, oh, now can you read it for me? It's 47 seconds.
Yeah. And that's called the elevator pitch. When I was working in American Express and I was leaving American Express, it was a big, change management thing. And there was a buyout and there was like 300 of us that decided to leave. I had the opportunity to work with a career coach. And one of the best exercises that I've ever done in my career was developing my elevator pitch. Now, my pitch has changed a lot in the 9 years since I left American Express, but I still have that skill set where I could tell my brand story and my personal story and my business story and my podcast story in 60 seconds. And I think that's an excellent exercise. Yeah. And let's talk about that creative transition, right? Being able to take your values and take your message and bring it to the online. How do you start that process with a client?
Well, we have an assignment, right? So we have a class, we have a workshop. We talk about why values are important and why our values needs to be aligned with their audience. That's why when I see all these people that say, please follow me, let's connect, it's just, I would not recommend to anybody to do that.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who claim to be experts on LinkedIn who give a lot of bad advice. And I think that just because you have X amount of followers, and I'm not talking about you specifically, I'm talking about other people, the amount of followers that you have does not indicate that you are an expert on this platform. There are ways to gain followers. It's about how you do it and how you broadcast your message. Mm-hmm. growing on LinkedIn is not just a contest or a numbers game, but it's about adding
No.
valuable connections and meaningful connections. How do you filter it, right? Like
let me tell you
please.
something more deep about it.
Absolutely.
Meaning, at the end of the day, I mean, when you start creating your tribes by your personal branding or branding your product or your service or your company, you need to create a community that is going to be around your brand. That community is the community that is going to support you and support your post and support your business because they are connected with you. And the only way humans through computers can only connect is through our emotions.
Absolutely.
So if your values and my values are aligned, it's a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you think people struggle? I mean, listen, not everybody's values are going to align, right? Not everyone's values are going to match up to, but you also want to guide people to be authentic, right? You want people to be their real selves so they can connect with people. But some people find it hard. Like, how do you coach people where they're having a problem really figuring out what those values are and how they translate?
Well, most of the people that I coach, they found them quickly. You know, it's a long exercise. It's an exercise that really makes you reflect, and everybody enjoys that exercise. You know, we have fun practicing and watching and, you know, and talking about it. It's one of my first exercise on my coaching. And, you know, and while I'm learning things through in my journey, I also add them on my coaching for my clients, right? So we really enjoy that phase. But most of the people that comes to me, you know, they know what they stand for at this point of their lives.
Well, let's talk about your own LinkedIn journey, because it's quite impressive. I mean, you've amassed, hundreds of thousands of followers in a couple of years from all over the world, and you've done it in an authentic way. You haven't done it with cheating. You haven't done it with pods or bots or anything. What's your secret to growing?
Just be giving, right? I mean, I've always been giving since the beginning. I always support, people. I help a lot of people on the platform. I have a list. To help them to reach certain amount of followers and help them with how to craft their messaging or tell them what to do or not what to do. So I believe also that many people on LinkedIn has been following me because what I've been teaching has been working for them, and they still following me because what I've been teaching and I keep teaching is what I'm been discovering during this journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's also shareful, right? But it's not the same to have me like one-on-one and talk to you on the direct and correct you, right?
Well, where do you think people go the wrong way, right? Like, I mean, again, we were talking about there's so many people out there who jump on the platform, they jump on the bandwagon, and they join this kind of coaching train, this coaching pyramid. I mean, how would you recommend somebody, whether it be you or another coach, what's the best way to find a coach that's good for you?
Well, you need to first look at their content, look at their engagement, look at if their reviews, look at with who they gather, how they react. I mean, your values have to be completely aligned with your values. I had a client that Ed, thank you, Ed, that he posted a review about me yesterday, and I was like, wow, thank you. He talks about me. He talks very highly about my services. And I was very, very pleased to hear that. It's nice. So why? Because, and he mentioned in the end, hire a coach that your values are aligned with them. Because when my clients come, I mean, we have the same values, and that's awesome. I don't have to deal with people that I have to go pushing them or pulling them. They're ready.
And there's also this concept. I mean, I work with an executive business coach on my business side, which I'm going to be talking about a lot more in upcoming content, the NHP Talent Group, which is my recruiting consultancy. And him and I talk about the first question in any coaching relationship is coachability, right? Is someone able to be coached? Are they receptive to feedback? Are they going to get defensive about it? Are they going to be able to handle it constructively? Are they going to be open enough? Because listen, if you're willing to make this investment, listen, you pay for what you get. Right. There's a lot of crappy coaches out there that'll sell you something real cheap, but you get what you pay for. And you have to think about it too, right? Think about the top athletes, the top performers in the world, the Tiger Woods, the Serena Williams, the Beyoncés, they all have coaches. How do you think they stay at the top of their game? And do you think those coaches are cheap? right?
No.
Do you think those coaches are cheap? It's funny. I was talking with another mentor of mine. This is right before I decided to engage with my business coach. And I was asking his advice. And I said to him, I go, hey, I'll leave his name out for now. I'm like, what are your thoughts on coaching? And we started talking and he starts to laugh. And I'm like, hey, why are you laughing? He's like, it's really funny, Adam, because literally right after this call, I'm having the first call with my coach. And he told me who this coach is and who he's coached before. I mean, we're talking about the creme de la creme, the top of the top. And he
Okay.
told me how much he's paying. And then it made sense to me, right? Like even the best of the best get coached. And it comes down to coachability. Like, are there things that you do when you're first engaging with a potential client to see if they're a good match from a coachability standpoint?
Yes, of course.
And what are some of those things that you do?
Well, I talk to them and I tell them about my rules. I mean, I have certain rules that they have to be respected. If you have an appointment with me tomorrow and you haven't sent me your assignment one day prior my class, I mean, your class is canceled until the next week.
I mean, that's
Because,
important.
because I cannot check homework or your assignments while I'm coaching somebody else who's paying me for listening.
Yeah,
So,
you need to have that time. You need to be able to do it.
yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, they're cool. My clients are super cool. I mean, when I see something wrong, I send a note, I screenshot what I did, and I put a red mark like this in the middle.
Like a
And I
teacher?
say, no, and I send it by text message. One of my clients said that when she goes to complain to her husband is like, Lorena's right. She's doing right. So
Well,
we
there's
were
a reason you're a coach. Yeah, I
What?
mean, listen. Yeah, I mean, we talk about your content, and what I admire from your content is a couple things. First, you're always giving, right? You're always giving. You are showcasing yourself, but you're not doing it in an overly promotional way, and that's something that I try to do as well too, by shining a light on the guest, by shining a light on the content itself. I see a lot of people out there where it's all shameless promotion all day, just me, 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 me. And it becomes draining, right? It becomes like the same message, and it kind of just dilutes the content and dilutes everything. How do you advise on like a content cadence? I mean, you post a lot every single day that way because you have a lot of followers. You want to make sure it's in the feed. I started up.
Best advice.
Yeah.
Hire me.
Right, but like, we'll get to the plug. Don't worry, we always get to the plug in this show too. But like, what's right? Everyone's kind of putting out there, post a couple days a week, post a couple times a day.
They don't know how to craft their messaging. I mean, sometimes when you are creating your messaging to attract your audience, you have to have certain pillars in your messaging. You have to have a common belief that is gonna create that atmosphere between you and your audience. You have to have your call of action. You have to have everything together. You have to have your target audience. You have to have your narrative. That makes sense to me and to 100,000 people.
And how do you? But how do you?
Just to sit and say, okay, well, today I'm going to talk about nuts because I'm allergic to nuts. Okay, well, sorry, it's fine. It's part of your personal brand. If you want to share that kind of content on time to time, but don't let all your content to become that.
Right, you have to, but it's interesting because how do you speak to? It's a challenge, right? Because at times, like for example, there's times when I want to speak to the masses, and there's also times when I want to speak to a niche target when it comes to my business. How do you balance the two of them?
Well, my niche is very open, so anybody can fit. So I don't have to. Sometimes I have a certain target audience. Depends of the story that I say. If I talk about a single mom, while I was a single mom, and when I get divorced, and when I came to the house for the first time with my daughter, with an empty house, and we were, like we didn't know what's going on. So in that post, who was my target audience?
Right. I mean, it speaks to a lot of people.
To single parents, right? To went through that situation, and they like the content. They feel aligned with my beliefs and with my values. So that is what create that ecosystem between your content, your strategy, your narrative, and your target audience.
No, that's fantastic. So Lorena, we're gonna wrap it up because we're gonna bring in our next guest on this Power Hour. I could talk to you for hours, but where could folks find
Sure.
you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more about your coaching and everything that you provide?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn on my profile. They can send me a message, or they can send me a text message.
Where could they text
I
you?
have right now about let me, because I don't know the memory. Well, let me tell you right now my phone number. It's in the top of my profile,
It's on your
and they can
profile.
text me right there. So I receive a lot of business out from my profile
That's great.
because of the phone number. So let me give you my text number. It is the 407-801-6104.
And we'll repeat that and we'll drop that in the comments. And everyone, I urge you, if you want to follow some great content and learn from someone who is truly a master and an amazing human being, Lorena Acosta. Lorena, thank you for joining us today. I'm going
Thank
to bring in
you,
my
Adam.
next guest. I don't know, do you
Have a
know
wonderful
Rebecca?
weekend. Bye,
Rebecca
Rebecca.
O'Brien.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
Lorena,
Hey,
thank you so
Lorena.
much.
Thank you.
We'll
Bye-bye.
catch up soon. Bye. Rebecca, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I am doing great. Where in the world am I speaking to you today?
Do you know what? I am actually just outside of Stockholm right now and have been for the last few months. So I am hanging out in the countryside and working from my little home office here.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm half Irish, half Swedish, and
Nice.
I was born in Galway, but then moved to the Bay Area in California, and I grew up in San Jose. And then at 11, I moved to Sweden.
Wow.
And then from there, so I've been jumping around some. After there, I went, had my career around Europe. So no fear in traveling or moving or just jumping to another part of the world and
I
living the
love it.
rest of my life.
That's fantastic. And what's like kind of the vibe there? I mean, in the US, it's still crazy with COVID and everything. I'm here in New York. I am in Long Beach, New York. Let me drop my little. I am in the Bridgeworks co-working space in Long Beach, New York. My favorite office. I absolutely love it here. So I'm about 20 minutes east of JFK Airport on the South Shore here. So just to give you a little bit of reference. So before we jump into the heart of our content that we're going to talk about today, which is burnout, I would love if you could give everybody a quick introduction and tell everyone who you are and what you do best, Rebeecca O'Brien.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. So I am a stress management and burnout prevention coach, also a nutritionist and certified mindfulness instructor. But I'm here on LinkedIn, and, I'm helping the powerhouse professionals, all us high achievers, to reduce stress and anxiety, avoid burnout, do that prevention work to ultimately create sustainable success.
Oh, I love it. And real quick, like, how did you get into this? Right. I always love to ask people, it was just something when you were a child that you were just like so empathetic. Were you always playing like doctor and nurse with your friends? Were you always like, that kid in school who was looking out for the underdog who was getting bullied? Like, tell us a little bit of how you got into this profession.
Yeah. I mean, you could say on some sense, I'm definitely a nurturer, a carer. That's always been, I think, in my gene and how I grew up from a small child. But I honestly went, straight in from college to, I want to work in one of the biggest companies in the world, and, just really on that train and just go, go, go. Wanted to get my CV, as picture perfect as possible and really check all those, boxes. So I was, coming from a corporate and business family, just there was no real other choice for me. It was like straight in sales and marketing, corporate, let's do this. And I was there for many years. I worked, both in Oracle, Intercontinental Hotels Group, and then finally the Gothenburg Post, a leading newspaper. But with this, of course, not really listening to what I wanted or my true self or actually my true passion. Really just jumping on a train with, blinders on, I was not listening when my body and heart was telling me otherwise.
So
I
did you
was looking
experience
at the fine achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I was about to say, like, I mean, did you feel it yourself? Did you, like, you felt it, that it wasn't a passion, you weren't feeling it, and you decided to make that change and that pivot? And how good did it
Yeah,
feel? Right? It was definitely, I assume that it was a tough road ahead to jump into it. It was challenging. It was different. It was, learning a new skill set, really pivoting there. How did you
yeah.
handle that emotional change?
I mean, absolutely. For me, it came, the only reason I changed and actually luckily got, sidetracked, or let's say pivoted totally, was because I hit the wall of full mental and physical burnout. And that's really what stopped me in my tracks. I wasn't listening to my body, wasn't listening to, what I wanted to do and in alignment. And I got really, really sick. And I had the symptoms for a very long time, but I didn't see them. This happened and I was sick for 2 years. So it took me a while also to know that I've always been very interested in love and respect, health and wellness and taking care of ourselves.
Right.
But ultimately, I had to, unlearn all that and relearn. And I went back to school
Oh,
to
cool.
become and specialize in what I do today.
I love it. That's incredible. So let's talk about burnout. I mean, now it's absolutely, it's widespread. And
Yeah.
it's because we're all working from home and it's a very different environment. And
Yeah.
some people thrive in it, right? Some people are lucky. Some people, it's actually optimal for them. Some people, it's
Yeah.
great. They have a physical space. They're taking out that daily commute, which might have been stressful for them. They operate better, less stress. Some people are introverts and they like to be home. There's other people on the other side of it that really need to be in an office. They need that collaboration. There's other people that need to be in an office space because logistically, maybe their home's not right. Maybe there's a lot of people living in a small place. Maybe they don't have the right internet connection, the right logistics setup. And maybe there's some people that are stuck at home with people that they don't want to be stuck with. And there's a stress on that, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a whole stress if you have kids having to deal with them and homeschooling and all that. So there's so many things that kind of compound it right now. And there's another piece that I truly believe is a major factor. I mean, we see the productivity numbers through the roof. Is a lack of decompression time. And my hypothesis is on it. The time that we're going to an office physically, right? The time that we're in a car and we're trained, whatever, we're kind of getting in that mindset. And when we leave the office, there's that decompression period, right? That time between work and home where you could kind of reset and reconfigure. And I know for me, sometimes I'll work right up until that dinner bell and then I'm literally downstairs with the kids.
Yeah.
And I have to shut everything off. I have to shut off that annoying email I just read, that terrible conversation I had with a client. And it's tough. So let's talk about burnout and your perspective right now.
Yeah, I mean, everything you mentioned and more, I say, especially during this time, I have, shout out to the parents there and anyone, with kids and living several people in a family, because that can be extremely difficult and extremely just time consuming, like you said. Also, we're working from home. And we will work up until 8:00 or 7:00 dinner time. Maybe go back on the computer at 9:10 after dinner as well. It's really a matter of setting boundaries for yourself, but also I say prioritizing self-care and prioritizing what you need in that rest and relaxation stage. If that is, rest relaxation doesn't have to be, I'm going to go meditate or I'm going to go for a nap
Not for
or go
everybody.
to sleep. No, exactly. So, I mean, that can be, going out to exercise,
Taking a walk, getting some fresh air.
Getting outside, turning off your phone, turning off at least social medias and those kind of things. Taking, if you have a bath at home, a long, time,
I haven't taken a
time
bath
for
since I was
yourself.
4.
Taking a bath, I know my ladies and women can really relate to this though. Relaxing time, just really to prioritize your downtime, because it's all about a balance. You need that balance, and we can't just go.
It's tough. And how how could somebody recognize signs of burnout in themselves, and how could they recognize, let's start with that, and then I want to understand how to recognize, signs of burnout in your, family, loved ones, and friends.
Yeah. So signs with burnout yourself is we need to be really in tune with ourselves and really self-aware with ourselves. And I know for many people, this is difficult, and symptoms come up that we think, go under, I'm having a bad day, or I'm having a bad few days, everything has gone wrong. Yeah, it's nothing just past that. But I mean, symptoms can look at both cognitive with memory loss, difficult concentration, your focus. We can look at behavioral symptoms, eating, drinking more,
Right.
eating, drinking, eating less. It can be procrastination in your behavior, nervous habits that come, up, and also physical ones, physical aches and pains in your body,
Right.
headaches.
Stress manifests physically, and especially if you're lumped over
Oh,
a
yeah,
computer all day and your head is in. I mean, I feel it on
very
those
much.
extreme
Yeah.
days. Well, too, you have to make sure you kind of get up and stretch around.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Physical,
mean,
I mean, for myself as well, it was very much, neck headaches, but also holding a lot of tension in your jaw.
oh yeah, that's where I hold it,
It
right
can
in
be,
here.
yeah, that one. Frequent colds, it can be, because I mean, you're really pushing your immune system and testing that. But also then finally, emotional symptoms
How so?
of irritated, short-tempered, mood swings. That was something that was very, very real for me, and that I saw, but it can also go to the other side of like sense of loneliness,
Mm.
depression. When I was diagnosed with burnout, it was mental, physical burnout, but I was also diagnosed with depression during that time.
Wow. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, you think about it. There's a lot of, it's crazy. I talk to a lot of people that are single that are in New York City, and in the heart of the
Mm,
pandemic, I mean, they literally were like prisoners in their own home. They
yeah,
didn't have a companion, they didn't have a roommate,
yeah,
they didn't have boyfriend, girlfriend, anybody to
yeah.
kind of rely on, and that was really tough too. And now that we're getting
Mm,
out of it in New York, I mean, obviously people are getting out more, and I'm seeing people
mm.
happier. But how do we look at those signs in our friends and family to say, hey, Rebeecca, I noticed, the last couple of weeks you've been doing X, Y, and Z. Are you okay?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I love this, Adam. I'm going to say immediately, I'd love to just be like, yeah, look for this in you and look for this in families. And the most difficult thing is here, and that's why so many of us, and I can, say us for myself as well, we don't see the symptoms because we hit the wall, and we don't see them before we hit the wall,
Right.
especially with the entrepreneurs, all the businesses, the high achievers here on LinkedIn. We're doing I see fantastic people doing amazing
A
things,
million miles
fantastic
an hour,
things.
right?
Yes. And of course, you have goals and dreams and everything with that. But it comes down to the self awareness and how are you feeling? If you're communicating with, your partner, and you feel that, exhaustion, or like I said, with these symptoms now, really take that for what it is and take a note of that and take action on it to, take a step back. I'm not saying, okay, you need, 6 weeks holidays or 2 months off, but take the time if it is, an evening, and if it is a whole day, if it is the whole weekend, whatever you need, and be able to really take time out for yourself and switch off anything else that is going
Yeah.
to come up.
And you brought up something really interesting, and I posted about this myself about, it had to be at least 6, 7 weeks ago. I was like, are
Yeah.
people taking vacation days? Right? Are people
Yeah.
take like it was so funny. I said to my wife the other day, I'm like, how many vacation
Mm,
days do you have left for the year? And she's like, I have like 12. I'm like, well, let's freaking take them, right? Like, and
yeah.
we started to plan things out. I'm like, a day here, a day there. Like, just
Yeah.
take those days off. Take a half a day, take a morning,
Mm,
take something there.
yeah.
And another thing too is that digital detox. That's something, because I am literally
Yes.
glued to my
Yeah.
phone. I see my
Yeah.
screen report daily, and it makes me want to vomit. Right? Am I
Yeah.
really on my phone that much. And then I feel like an ache in my finger, and I'm like, my finger hurts because I've been holding my phone. Like I got this little like clip on the back of it. And sometimes,
me too.
right. I have my wedding, I have my wedding ring, and then I have this ring, as my wife said. She says my two wives are right here on my hand.
Oh, there you go. Oh,
no, I'm bad. I am addicted to my phone. It's terrible. Sometimes I make excuses like it's my business, but there's also the dopamine rush that I think a lot of us are going for, that instant gratification, the notifications. You want to see, did someone comment? Did someone email me back? Did someone get it? And that's that adds stress too, right? That digital attachment.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, do you sleep with your phone? Do you have your phone in your bedroom? And last thing you look at it at night and first thing in the morning?
Yeah, I'm bad like that. I know I need to put it away. One of the things I try to do when I'm with my kids is to physically put my phone, like at dinner, we have a rule. The phone can't even be in my pocket. The phone has to be on the side table.
Good.
It's something I try to do when I'm playing with my kids. So I kind of take it away from them. But I mean, it's right there. It's the first thing, after I give my wife a kiss in the morning, sometimes before, I'll be honest, right? If she's still sleeping, I'll look at my phone, and it's bad. It's really bad. And it causes stress, right? Anxiety, thinking about, did my boss email me? Did the client email me back?
Yeah, and I mean, I think with this, it's really, and just to link that with the whole, dopamine and things that are there, it's time to get really smart habits and sustainable habits, like I say, to just, leave your phone, put it in another room if that is the case, because I know this is difficult. I sometimes have my phone with me, sometimes I don't, but really to set a practice of leaving your phone outside the bedroom, leaving your phone in another room, switching it off, or at least in the morning, giving yourself, some time to get your cup of coffee, get some breakfast, give yourself 20 minutes. If it's half an hour would be amazing, but I know people are stressed with time, but make that change and set a true, real practice in place.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Like setting a practice. And I always kind of laugh when I see people on LinkedIn when they talk about their morning routine. They're like, up at 4 a.m., had my, kombucha smoothie, cold brew, nitro, mushroom tea, whatever the hell it is. I did an hour of yoga. I meditated. I wrote in my gratitude journal. I'm like, I got up at 7:15 with my daughter jumping on my stomach, and then my 2-year-old, I hear him screaming into the monitor, "Daddy, daddy, daddy!" And then I'm jumping downstairs to get that's how my day starts, right? How do you kind of guide people to find like that mindful practice, like baby steps, micro steps? How is it?
Yeah, I mean, it truly is, like you said, the baby steps. I mean, I had one lovely client, and she was a mother with 2 kids, and this was one of the things, we spoke about, of the mornings and what is she doing, because she was so stressed with time management and just felt this enormous of overwhelm all the time, of like just catching up of everything. And it was there for her to start setting her alarm clock earlier, getting up by herself, having this time for herself. And like I said, if that was 20 minutes or anything, yes, she did, do the practices in her journal because she wanted that, and just, a time of gratitude and be able to take that time for yourself. But her whole day took effect from that. And the impact was, she felt more calm, had more peace, more clarity on, the to-do list of what to do today. She knew where she could balance, her time, and throughout lunch, the afternoon, and the evening. So it just makes for a completely different start.
No, I love it. So we're coming to the end of our quick power hour here. What would you say is your number one tip right now for somebody to just be mindful, present, self-aware, and kind of just have their finger on the pulse of what's happening inside?
Yeah, really listen in to your body, and listen to what the signs are telling you, or what the symptoms are telling you, and practice that self-care. Like, take that to heart. Don't push that away like we so easily do. Really take that time where, I'm having a bad day today, or I feel like crap and I'm exhausted and I feel drained. Take that hour or two the evening then, and do something else, and do something for yourself to prioritize that health.
That's fantastic. Rebeecca, thank you so much for joining us today. Where could folks
Thanks.
find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
They can find me here on LinkedIn, Rebeecca O'Brien, but also I'm under Wellness by Rebeecca. That is my company and coaching company and services that I provide.
That's awesome. And please drop that in the comments into the thread.
I will, yeah.
We get a ton of replays. It's really interesting with the LinkedIn Live because it is the middle of the day. A lot of people are working, not everybody's on. And then I also repost it on YouTube. I repost it on Facebook. Looking forward to keeping our relationship going. And thank you so much for joining us. And
Me
you have a
too.
great one. I'm going to
Thank
bring
you
on our
so
next
much.
guest. We
Thank
got Maya
you.
Grossman coming on board. Thank you, Rebeecca. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Maya, what's happening? We did it. We finally made it happen.
I know, so exciting. Thank you so much for having me, and what great conversations you already had this morning.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. And where am I speaking to you today?
I'm at home, obviously, in San Francisco.
What's happening out west? Are you guys still like under quarantine there? What's happening?
Yes, we are. To be honest, we haven't really gotten out of quarantine since it began. Yeah, but it's getting better. It's getting better.
That's good. Well, hopefully you're at least able to get outside and get some fresh air and get some sunlight, right?
Yeah, of course. We go out all the time. Just make sure that we have our masks on and we keep, the right amount of distance.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So before we get started, first and foremost, thank you for joining me today. I've been looking forward to this one. I am a huge fan of your content. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that to everybody because I'm a stickler, right? Listen, I've been in my career, right? I mean, the show's not about me today, but I've had my ups and downs. I've climbed the corporate ladder, I've climbed titles and everything. So when I see people putting content out there specifically around job advice, I unpack it, right? I want to see how legit they are. I want to see what they've done in their own career. And I admire you for your success. And I could see that you have a right to say what you're saying. You have that experience. And second of all, the advice that you're giving is absolutely actionable and spot on, right? It's not a lot of fluff. So before we dig into all that kind of good stuff, real quick, high level, tell us who you are and what you do best.
Yeah, of course. I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer for the past 15 years, worked for companies like Microsoft and Google, but also fast growing startups. And I love marketing. It's definitely my biggest passion. But right after that is career development. And this is exactly why the last year I decided to start creating this content on LinkedIn, helping people, sharing from those 15 years of experience, and actually ended up writing a book about it.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a little bit. I saw the teaser coming out for that, and I want to start with one word that you and I have in common. And I've been saying this to one of my mentors, who implanted it into my brain on the 13th day of March at the beginning of the pandemic. Is this word invaluable, right? And it's a word that resonates with you. I think that's what your book is called, right?
Yes, it is. That's the name of the book.
And I've spoken about my definition of the word invaluable. What is your definition?
So for me, an invaluable employee is someone who puts the company first. It's someone who's not obsessed just with their own job. They want to do the right thing and they want to optimize for the bigger picture, not just the day-to-day. It's someone who doesn't count hours because they're always thinking about the company. It doesn't mean they work 24/7. You shouldn't do that. Just based on the last conversation, you do not want to burn out, but you want to be engaged, which is a huge problem these days. About 70% of people are not engaged at work, which I find terrifying because I love what I do. For me, going to work is something enjoyable, not something to be dreaded. And I guess in a way, invaluable employees enjoy what they do. And because they do, they're able to make a much bigger impact for a company.
And it comes down to, enjoying what you do. And if you don't enjoy what you do, then get out, right? Our lives are short, there's no time to stick around and do that. So, going back to your career, and you have some great names, on your resume, and you've had a chance to really experience different types of organizations and different sizes. So you're able to give this, there's a lot of bad advice on LinkedIn. I see people who have no business at all giving career advice, right? They're doing it for the likes, they're doing it to build up some kind of practice here. And there's a few people like yourself who really do it well. Now in this economy, in this job market, I mean, it literally flipped at the beginning of March. It was a candidate-driven market where basically there was a lot less jobs and candidates available, and the candidates had the kind of pick of the litter. And now it's flipped. Now, and straight up, I am a in the trenches recruiter who is day-to-day with jobs. we are only looking at A-list talent, right?
Yeah.
Because because it's on the market and because it's available. And this is making it a lot harder for somebody who may not be 100% qualified for a job, who may not even be 50, 70% qualified. What's some of your advice right now for somebody who's struggling to stand out? And let's start, and it's a very broad question, right? So let's kind of narrow it in here. What would you say the first step? Say you just lost your job, you're furloughed, and you need to look for something. Like, where do you even start? Because I think that's a big problem for a lot of people. They don't know where to focus. And on day one, I'm out of work. Day one, where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems that I see, especially with young professionals, is a lack of focus. They want a job, but they don't know what job in particular. So they may apply for marketing jobs and sales jobs, and there's no way that your resume or your LinkedIn profile is going to work for every single type of job you want. So I think the first step is to focus. Decide exactly what you want to do, not just an industry, but a very specific role. If you want to be in marketing, do you want to do product marketing or demand gen? And the more specific you are, the better. And then tailor everything, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, the content you create, tailor it to that specific role. And if you don't know how to do that, go and research 5, 10 different job descriptions for that role, understand the keywords, understand the requirements, and then make sure that you reflect those in your resume and in your LinkedIn profile. That's step number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But the only problem is, just kind of like you mentioned, there are a lot more candidates than jobs. So it's very challenging. I would not rely on applying online. It's just a numbers game, and it's probably not going to be in your favor. So I would say, again, this goes back to focus. Choose 5 to 10 companies you really want to work for, and then go deep. Learn about them, understand them.
Put in the job, put in the time. Job search is work. It's real work.
I know. And find people who work for those companies, not the recruiter or the hiring manager. Find other people who may be part of your team, do informal interviews, really get to know the company, find what are the challenges they're facing right now, and then position yourself to solve those challenges. And I'm going to be honest with you, working for Microsoft and Google, I never applied. I was referred to those roles because I did exactly what I'm telling you to do now. Yeah,
I mean, that's the way you get in. I mean, let's think about it, right? These major companies, I think you even put the numbers out in a recent post, like there's hundreds of thousands of employees, thousands of jobs, thousands of contractors, right? At these major companies, that application process is a black hole in many cases, right? Because they're getting so many applications. And I mean, I even gave an example the other day how with one of my clients, we had a project manager role here in New York, and within the first 2 days, there was 400 resumes. And I broke it down, and out of those 400 resumes, immediately could disqualify at least 250 of them that were completely irrelevant. They were out of the country when I said we're not offering, certain sponsorships, certain visas, all that kind of stuff. Or they were just out of state when we said no relo available, no relo anything there, or they were just completely unqualified, right? Like a plumber applying to be an astronaut. I mean, no offense to plumbers, right? But I use that analogy, right? You have to have the skill set. You have to have the optics on your resume. Because listen, applying does work. I mean, I literally went in my current client right now that I'm working for. We had an application to hire for a senior level director role in 12 days. So it does work. Yeah, especially if you have those skills and you are that kind of top talent. Yes, you can definitely get past the ATS and then potentially get an interview and have the opportunity to showcase your abilities. But if you're early in your career, if you're aspiring to get into a new role, if you have 60 or 70% of the experience, you just can't afford to do that. I mean, if you send 1,000 resumes, then maybe, but I don't think it's going to get you to the top companies you're looking at. And I never recommend that either. If there's not 1,000 jobs out there that you qualified for, right? Yeah, exactly. Like it shouldn't be. Like you're not being focused on it. So I adore that advice, right? It's about building the connections and getting a referral the right way, but you still have to have a resume. And there's been a lot of chatter on LinkedIn lately, bashing resumes, bashing the process. Yeah. But until that changes, that's what we're working with, right? So you have to work with what we have here. Yeah. I give a decent amount of resume advice, right? And when we talk about keywords, right? Like, first and foremost, I'm going to say it again to people. ATS is not a robot. I've never seen it where people submit it and the robot rejects it immediately, right? There's a human being at the other end. So people need to get over that, right? Because that's a fact. I've seen it on my side. Now, yes, us as recruiters, I could tell you if I have 100 resumes, I could start to filter by keywords. I could start to filter by experience. So what are some basic tips like that people are just not listening to right now when it comes to
Yeah,
resumes?
I think it goes back to less is more and being super focused. So I actually had a chance to speak to a few young professionals, looked at their resume, and they had everything on it. We're talking 5 pages.
Kitchen
Now,
sink.
I have 15 years of experience, and I can't fill up 2 pages all the way down. So definitely need a lot more focus. Another challenge is using in their descriptions responsibilities and not outcomes or achievements, which is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to know that your responsibility was to manage an office. I want to know that you were able to negotiate with vendors and reduce acquisition costs by X amount, because then I know
Actionable.
you know how to do your job. Just telling me you have a job doesn't help me understand how well you can do it. So I think those are like the basics. Giving way too much information, not being focused. Again, people who have, are applying for a marketing role, but they have titles that say marketing, business development, product. There's no way you can do all of that and do it well. So if you're applying for a marketing job, focus on marketing. And it doesn't matter if if you actually didn't do a marketing role before, then obviously don't lie. But if you had this kind of role in a small company where you did everything, then just focus on marketing. Don't tell me about everything else. I don't care.
Yeah, no, that's certainly good advice too. I want to kind of take a side question here, and something that kind of irks me as a recruiter. Listen, I love entrepreneurs, I love startups, and I love that. And I think that it's okay if you've done that for a while and then you're transitioning back to the corporate world. But does it hurt people when, they literally are a startup founder, like literally, like I just started a company yesterday and there's nothing happening, no profits, and you're calling yourself a CEO, CMO? What are your thoughts on titling like that? Could that hurt you?
Potentially. I think with those titles comes a lot of expectations. And again, it goes back to, can you actually prove that you were successful? Because anyone can get a title, seriously. It means nothing. I spoke to people, who are high up there, and I probably would never hire them because it doesn't seem like they know what they're talking about. So I would be very careful not giving titles too much of an influence when you talk to a person or look at their resume. Look at what they have actually achieved.
Absolutely, and that's great advice. So because it's a power hour here, we're gonna jump around. Let's talk about networking, right? Because I think that for me and you, that comes second nature, right? It's something innate, something that we're built in. But a lot of people, it's hard, and they don't know the right etiquette, they don't know the right approach, they don't know where to start.
It's actually very hard for me too. I had to figure out how to do it.
Okay, good. I was just assuming that you had, so I shouldn't assume there. So what were some of your challenges, early on with networking? What are some of those fears that you faced?
Well, networking in person is terrifying to me to this day. I don't always feel as confident when I have a big crowd. If it's just one-on-one interaction, no problem. When there are a lot of people, I get stressed. But if I think about LinkedIn, I remember the first time I wanted to reach out to someone like more senior and ask for advice, and I was terrified. I think I looked at that message for like 5 days before I actually sent it out, because what would they think about me? Are they going to think I'm stupid? Am I rude? Why would they even, reply to my message? But you know what? None of that happened. That person was very kind. They spent time with me. And I realized, hey, it's not too bad. But the reason that they actually engaged is because I was very specific. I knew who they were. I knew what I wanted from them. And I had a very personalized ask.
Let's pause on that for a minute right there. And I think you hit the nail on the head. People don't know how to reach out on DM, and I literally received a couple of them. I literally received a couple of them today, and I'm not going to call them out. I'm not going to name and shame them, but there's 2 things that these people did wrong. One, the first person reached out to pitch me, and it was not an automated message, because I could tell automated from non-automated, but they did not spend the time to look at my profile. I think this person asked me what my core business is. I'm like, dude, it's on my freaking link. It's on my page. I outline exactly everything that I do there. Right? Like that's do your research.
It takes time to do research. And if you want to do it well, people are lazy. They think if they do it at scale, if they just send out 100 messages, it's going to work. I don't know anyone who replies to this type of messages like, hey, can you get me a job?
No,
who are you? I don't know you. And to be honest, some people reach out to me and they actually have an ask. They would say, do you have the time to look at my resume? And it's not my job. I don't usually do that. But if they ask in a really kind way, if they show interest, if they have a specific request, not just tell me if this is good, but rather, here's the job I'm applying for. Can you take a quick look and let me know if there's anything I can fix? Yeah, I would do that if I have the time, because it's a lot easier for me to say yes.
And you want to give people, if you're going to ask somebody, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there again. It's about a specific ask, right? Like, and I hate like, can I pick your brain? Like, can I pick your brain?
Yes.
Like, if you want to pick my brain, you could pay me, right? Like, I'm a consultant. You could pay me to pick my brain. But if it's like a specific ask and you point me in the right direction, for example, somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not a resume writer. I mean, I review resumes, but I am not a resume expert as far as writing them. But someone said to me, hey, and it's somebody I know. Not a deep connection, but somebody I'm connected to on LinkedIn. And they said, hey, I just updated, my objective, my about section. Could you take a look at it? Yes. They weren't asking me to look at the rest of their resume. They weren't asking me for a huge time commitment. And I did it. I did it in between calls, and it took me a few minutes, and I was able to really help that person. And that's how you build it out. So a couple of minutes here, and there's a few more things I want to hit on. I literally made a Post-it note here of things I want to talk to Maya about. Your name's at the top here. I love Post-it notes. If Post-it's looking to sponsor a podcast, 3M, whoever you are, I know I'm small change, but this concept of future-proofing your career, let's unpack that for a moment. What does that mean?
Great. So we live in an era where jobs change every other day. 5 years ago, there were not 10 different disciplines within marketing, and now you have it. And I think the more we kind of move towards automation, the more jobs are going to change. So very often when you graduate, everything you learned is just not relevant anymore. You have to really adapt and learn new skills. And I think the way to future-proof your career is to have that ability to learn and adapt. If you develop soft skills, they apply across any profession, no matter what you do moving forward in your career, which is, again, kind of why I wanted to focus on that with the book, because I think this is something that's going to be valuable for the long term, even if you pivot, even if you want to try out something new further down the line.
No, I love it. And I couldn't agree more with that. So let's talk about the book. And my first question is like, when was that moment when you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. Let's rewind a lot, because I love to ask authors about this.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I had a task on my to-do list, write a book, for like 3 years. And every year I kind of pushed it to the end and like, maybe next year. And when I was doing some consulting for Google, I think it was within 1 week that 3 people came to me and asked me the exact same career questions. And I gave them the exact same answer. And this was the first time where I thought, wait a minute, maybe I can just write it down. This will be a great way to give career advice to more people. And I kind of had this idea in my head, but I was like, there's no way, like, I'm not an author. How do you actually write a book? It's so intimidating. And I kept going back and forth. And then one day I sat with my husband and I was just complaining. I don't know what to do. I need to write this book. And he was like, babe, what do you actually want? What is the goal of this book? Do you want to be a millionaire? No. Do you want to make money out of it? I'm like, not so much. What do you want to do? And the answer was, I want to impact people. I want to help them grow their career and have fulfilling careers where they go to work and they have fun. And he said, well, there's your answer. Don't you think you should write that book if it's going to help more people? And just like that, I was like, okay. And I sat down and I started writing. And I had 3 chapters and they were crap. Awesome. So I had to throw them away and start all over again.
The process, if you could stick it through, right? I hear from everybody, it's the process.
Yep,
it's so
exactly.
refined. It's so like, there's a reason, right? Like your first draft isn't going to be your final draft. You're not even close to that, right? You don't just sit down and you're not, one of these great, you're learning to be an author as well. And I think
you have to start.
And let me ask you, have you always been a good writer? Because I hear a lot of times from people who are first-time authors, there's a difference between thinking up here and putting that down on paper, and there's a difference between writing posts for social media and writing it long form in a book that makes it more digestible and readable for people. Did you struggle there?
Not so much. I've been writing probably since I've been 10. I had like this notebook where I had different stories and poems as a kid. I would write love letters to boyfriends I never had. So writing is kind of my, way to express myself. And as a marketer, I had to do that a lot. But it is a different type of writing. And again, this is why I had to throw everything away and start again, because I was writing like I would a marketing type content. And it wasn't necessarily engaging enough for a consumer audience. So I really had to think about storytelling and sharing my real experiences, because at the beginning it was just advice. Here's what you should do. But people understand and remember much more when you give them a real story, when you share how it actually applies in the real world.
No, I love it. And we're coming up on our end here. So I want to ask you a couple of questions on LinkedIn. Some tips and secrets. I mean, you have grown tremendously. You have a great following. Your posts have been exploding. What's your secret there?
Consistency. I started posting December of 2019, and I basically had like 5 likes for every post, maybe 100 views. And I did that for almost 4 months without seeing any real growth, but just slowly getting more and more interest. And I would go out and invite other people and engage on other people's content. And just be super genuine. If anyone asked me a question, I would give them an answer. And just slowly, somehow this content, I guess, was exposed to more people on this platform. And now I don't have to spend that much time on growth because people kind of gravitate towards the content. But it's 100% consistency. And as every good marketer, I did market research. So I did 70 career coaching calls for free with young professionals, so that I can learn what they care about, what they struggle with, and create content that is super valuable to them.
I love it. That's fantastic. And I'm going to ask you a question that I ask on the full podcast, and I'd love to finish with this one. Maya, what's the greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on every single day?
Oh, this is a good one. My boss at Microsoft, I think it was probably my first or second week, he said, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. And this applies very well in the corporate world because a lot of the time there's a lot of red tape and you have to wait for things. And he said, forget it. Take action, do something, and say you're sorry afterwards if it becomes a problem. And I've been doing it ever since.
I love it. Maya, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Maya Grossman. And if you go to mayagrossman.com, you can read more about my book and sign up to get the first chapter for free.
That's awesome. And when is it coming out?
Official launch is September 15th, but we'll probably open pre-orders the last week of August.
That's awesome. Maya, thank you so much for joining me. And everyone joining us today, thank you. I know during this cast from the beginning, we've been experiencing a lot of difficulties on LinkedIn. People have had a hard time tuning into the live stream, which is really troublesome. I'm going to reach out to LinkedIn tech support afterwards. It's kind of frustrating when you put out a show and it's not getting spread out to everybody. So I apologize for that. We're going to upload this show to YouTube, and I'm going to share the link with Maya, Rebeecca, and Lorena today so they could get it out to their tribe. And everyone, remember, you can find all the podcast content. My last show with Cloudwater CEO Mark Seiden that dropped Tuesday. It's on www.thepodcast.com. Next week, episode 93 with Bon and Bo. Maya, do you know who Bon and Bo is?
Not yet, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Ooh, yes, of course. I'm not going to tell you right now, but there's some teasers out there. Maya, this has been fantastic. I want to keep this conversation going online. I'll post it up and we can get some people asking some questions and we'll go from there. Maya, thank you for joining me and you have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you for having me. You too.
Awesome. And everyone joining us, thank you for hanging out with us today on the podcast live. We got a couple of shows coming up at the end of August. I'm going to figure it all out. I got a lot of people that want to jump on and tell their stories. And catch us soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.